For nearly 2 decades, you've turned to Illegal Curve Hockey as your destination for the latest news, audio, and analysis regarding the Winnipeg Jets, Manitoba Moose, and all things hockey in Manitoba. Join Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk, and Ezra Ginsburg as a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good afternoon, Winnipeg. Good afternoon, Manitoba. For all those joining us live downtown Winnipeg, the City Place Food Court, we say good afternoon, universe, and welcome to a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Along with Dave Manouk, I'm your host, Drew Mandel, here for the next 60 or so minutes, getting you set for today's Jets-Canucks game, an all-Canadian matchup in downtown Winnipeg, the first time these two teams have faced each other this season. It should be a good one as the Jets look to continue their winning ways that started on Saturday night with one of the most complete victories on the season over the Colorado Avalanche, that all-important divisional matchup that took place on Saturday. The Jets looking to keep it going later on tonight against the Canucks as they look for 2 in a row on home ice as this lengthy homestand continues. Dave Manouk, good afternoon. A pleasure to see you as the Jets, sort of the excitement. There's always a little more excitement when it's two Canadian teams. Saturday night, division rival, there was excitement there. Tonight, two Canadian teams, first time they've faced each other. That similar excitement in the air for the Jets and the Canucks.
Yeah, and Vancouver's coming off of a big win in Toronto for that group. They're going to get Philip Hronek back. Rick Tocchet, they had an optional morning skate today at Canada Life, but the Canucks coach announced to the media who were there, I wasn't there, I was in the Matt Frost media room furiously trying to get all the media from the Jet staff on our YouTube channel, so folks can watch that, of course, after this broadcast. But yeah, no, the Jets, so we don't know the Canucks line because it was an optional.
Right.
But they will get Hronek back, which is, of course, a big shot. He'll be paired up with Quinn Hughes, so that's going to be a tall task for, of course, the Jets when they do battle this evening. Yeah,
and the Jets, of course, as we talk about the lineup machinations that are occurring for tonight's game, the Jets are going to be without Vlad Namestnikov, just like they were on Saturday night against the Colorado Avalanche, which resulted in Adam Lowry getting a promotion and a bit of a line juggling, something we haven't seen very much from the Winnipeg Jets, particularly in the top half of the lineup, especially since Nikolai Ehlers returned from injury. That was sort of the last time the Jets had some sort of different line combinations, but most people liked what they saw with that Adam Lowry moving up and to play with that Nikolai Ehlers going forward. So that'll be something, again, interesting to watch during today's game as the Jets and the Canucks will make reacquaintance with one another for the first time this year.
Yeah, and prior to that win against the Leafs, and I was trying to be nice because 4 of the Canucks were walking past us, Drew, so I
was doing the same thing.
I amended what I was about to say, but they did, of course, have a bit of a losing streak before that. 4 games in a row where they had lost. 2 of those games were in extra time, so the Jets, the Canucks, of course, coming in, they would have been coming in real snarly, if they didn't get that win, but apparently that got their group going and motivated again. But really, of course, we're here to focus on the Winnipeg Jets and what's going on with them. And really, as we know, the Jets are, as they were yesterday in practice with those newfound lines that you mentioned that they used so effectively against the Colorado Avalanche on Saturday night. And so we're going to see largely the same thing, with the exception, of course, of Ville Heinola. Ville Heinola draws in, Dylan Coghlan comes out, and Ville Heinola will be getting some power play time. So that's some of the things that head coach Scott Arniel spoke about today, was that idea of what can that do for Ville Heinola, sorry, I'm trying to go back to the right way to say it as opposed to the way I usually say it.
You got the Ville part right. That's the important part.
I do. But the point is that from that perspective, what can him getting additional touches on the power play do for his game, even at 5-on-5? And Scott Arniel was inclined to believe that it will have a benefit. Of course, more ice time generally does,
sure,
especially on the power play where you have the advantage. So I suspect maybe that'll help buttress up his confidence a little bit, and he needs it because this is the time, really, as this blue line, Drew, gets healthier. We saw Colin Miller. He's in he was in a non-contact jersey today at practice. Scott Arniel told us yesterday in his media availability that Colin Miller will need to be cleared by the doctors Thursday or Friday, and that would be around I think it occurred on the 5th, so maybe about 10 to 11-day mark. He said
You're looking
approximately 2 weeks.
He's probably about a week away still.
Well, you know what? I always say that, and then the guy comes back like a day later. But yes,
yeah.
the reality is
probably looking at the road trip where next week, where the Jets on Monday they head to Utah, and then Wednesday they head to Colorado.
Yeah, so,
more likely there than on the rest of this homestand.
Well, you don't need to rush him because the whole point is that you've got guys back now, and you're going to give these guys
Hayden Fleury too.
Yeah, and you're going to have to make a decision with Dylan Coughlin, of course, because you don't want him to have to go through waivers again. So I suspect, like I said, you're going to have Fleury, who's, as we were told yesterday, is back Thursday, potentially Thursday, most likely Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Colin Miller. So, again, that means probably Dylan Coughlin back down to the Moose, and the D core getting healthy again, which we haven't seen for a while.
Yeah, it's so exactly the Jets sort of gone through that injury bug that has bit them on the back end, and now you're back to having maybe 9, even 10 sort of healthy defensemen, depending on what happens with waivers and everything along those lines. But it's for a Jets team that was looking real thin on the blue line for a little while, they've weathered that storm pretty well, and now look like they're of course that can change in the drop of one game, as we've seen. At least they seem to have weathered that storm. But let's talk about this homestand a little bit, because prior to Saturday, I would say that the homestand at best would be described as middling.
Yep.
It was
I think
a 1-1-2 prior to Saturday's game against the Avalanche, and then it's amazing how that one effort against Colorado, which was probably in the running for one of the best Jets efforts so far this season, especially against a division rival and against a significant. Against the significant opponent, all of a sudden, boy, doesn't 2-1-2 look a heck of a lot better on the score sheet than 1-1-2 or 1-2-2 or 1-1-3, and just the way that they played on Saturday night is what I think it has everyone so excited, and had our post game show had everybody really buzzing about the performance on Saturday night.
Yeah, and I think it's an accurate one, because you didn't need Connor Hellebuck to be Connor Hellebuck. He was good in the game, but he didn't need to steal that hockey game for the Winnipeg Jets. They played a complete game. Now, was it because they finally kind of changed that up because that second line hadn't been doing enough? We've been talking about it. So this is an unfortunate situation, but you get a chance where now Adam Lowry Nikolai Ehlers is playing with, again, Adam Lowry's not an offensive driver,
right?
As we've talked about what the Jets need at that 2C position, but he is more of a driver, of course, I would say, Vlad Nemestikov. So you do have that sort of changed momentum, and Nikolai Ehlers now having more defensive responsibility, something he talked about. I wasn't there, of course, but something he talked about after the game.
He embraced that.
He embraced it. He relished that opportunity. So, again, when you're having guys step up, and Alex Iafallo, so many guys, Dominic Toninato spoke about him after morning skate today. Scott O'Neill spoke about him yesterday. Just this idea of a guy who, I think Adam Lowry said it yesterday. He's like, he was playing with like Kempe and Kopitar in LA 2 years ago.
Right.
So the fact of the matter is, this guy knows how to play with
high-skilled players.
High-skilled guys,
Sure.
in a defensive role, whatever it needs. He can kind of be that Swiss Army knife. Pardon to Niederreiter, of course.
No, pardon to the original Swiss Army knife, Michael Frolik.
Sure, but that's fair enough. Good point by you. Good reference by you, especially given the nature of today's conversation with Tyler Myers coming to town, and of course Dustin Byfuglien being on the Jumbotron, and then Jacob Trouba. There was a lot of reflection in today's media availabilities with Josh Morrissey talking about what the impact of the 17-18 team did for him, a guy just in his second year with the Jets,
right?
What kind of impact that had for him. So that's kind of there was a lot of nostalgia already throughout the course of this morning. And again, if you get a chance, listen to it on our YouTube channel, of course, after the show today.
Exactly. After the show today, we are, of course, live here at City Place, downtown Winnipeg. We do this monthly, a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, getting you set for tonight's Winnipeg Jets Vancouver Canucks matchup. All sorts of great options here as we're stationed in the food court. And I admit, Dave, I'm a little peckish. I'm keeping my eyes open for my my post-broadcast choice for lunch, as so many other people here that are joining us live at City Place are currently dining in, enjoying their different options that are available here as we talk about the Jets and the Vancouver Canucks. Let's talk for a second about that sort of revamped forward group that we saw on Saturday. The Jets obviously lose Vlad Nemestikov, which makes everything change a little bit on that along those lines. And Adam Lowry gets that bump up. They say that, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention, something along those lines. You wonder that, losing the Nemesnikov, you're never happy to have a guy like him out of your
Sure.
lineup. But does this, maybe the Jets are going to stumble upon something here with him out of the lineup that allows them to rethink the forward groups, that especially the three forwards, three lines of forwards beyond Scheifele, Velarde, and Connor, because that line has been doing so well for so long. No reason to mess with that, as of late. But maybe all of a sudden, other forward lines where the Jets weren't necessarily getting the scoring as often as they typically would want to, this maybe frees things up. We saw, Ehlers get the 5-on-5 goal to open the game against Colorado. Then they got the empty netter, of course. But you wonder that, maybe this injury to Nemesnikov turns out to be a brief blessing in disguise, in that it allows Scott Arniel to reconsider how he deploys his lines.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a reason why I think the lineup configurations where the Jets have in the NHL, I think the two of the lines that have played the most together in the entire season.
Scheifele,
obviously,
and Connor.
that's the top one
Right.
for the entire NHL. And I believe the Lowry line was the fifth most minutes together. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is that we've talked about this a lot. We said, as an organization what works.
Yeah.
They knew last year, remember, we were like, okay, why don't you try something? Because if you have a guy go down with injury, you don't want to say, well, we used these same trio for 82 games. And actually, one of the things that Adam Lowry spoke about yesterday in our chat with him was that idea of like, so you don't have to have something becomes a muscle memory as opposed to a new sort of sensation that you have to create.
Right.
And it's the playoffs. So this way, at least, you can have guys more comfortable with each other, more ready to go. And that, to me, is something that it is, you're right. Again, nobody ever wishes for a guy to get injured, obviously.
Right.
But you're right. Sometimes it is a bit of a blessing in disguise, because it does force the team, when the team doesn't look like they're prepared to make those changes on their own, it forces their hand. And we've seen sometimes with the Jets that forcing their hand leads to actually better results, even if they're not willing to do it themselves.
And maybe this change, and so for those of you who are maybe just tuning in,
you should.
So I'll recap sort of the forward lines, or how we're expecting them to be for tonight's game. Again, no Vlad Nemesnikov.
Well, you don't have to expect them. They're based on.
I know, but I'm saying an injury mid-game could change things around.
Yeah,
but
fair.
Based on the morning skate, you have Connor, Scheifele, and Velarde together, as
Yeah.
you would expect, because that line has been absolutely dominant. Both really good at 5-on-5, and then of course the power play. We know that the Jets power play is top in the entire NHL.
Right.
And then you have the second line, the new look second line of Ehlers, Lowry, and Alex Iafallo together, and they had a good showing on Saturday night against Colorado.
Yep.
Playing some tough minutes against the Avs best, the McKinnon line, and they were able to really shut that line down, which is not something you say.
How many people have been able to say that this year?
Not very many. I mean, again, we talked about it on the post-game show on Saturday, and the players did after the game and everything else, just how impressive the Jets' effort was defensively in not giving up a high-danger chance after the first period.
That's a crazy stat.
That is a crazy stat. So, I mean, that is,
I remember Colorado was rested.
they hadn't played in a week or something, I think.
You could say they were slow, but then the craziest part also, but I'm saying but the funniest part is that you said after the first period. So my point is that you'd say, okay, well, you'd be rusty for the first, but then you get better throughout the course of the game.
Yeah.
They didn't, obviously, or I shouldn't say that they didn't, that the Jets didn't allow them.
That's right. The Jets bottled them up so significantly in the second and third periods that the Colorado Avalanche did not look like the high-flying, superstar-laden offensive juggernaut that we are used to them being.
That's right.
So Ehlers, Lowry, and Iafallo get a lot of credit for that. And now the new look third line is Niederreiter with Rasmus Kupari up the middle and Cole Perfetti on the right side there. And I wonder for Perfetti, and this is he's a guy that certainly the team wants more from. I'm sure he himself wants more production. I wonder if moving him sort of down in the lineup, where theoretically he's going to get some softer competition, might be a good opportunity for him, because that second line, the Nemesnikov, Ehlers, and Perfetti line, has been struggling for so long. And they really weren't generating anything of any significance. So you wonder if maybe this is a bit of a blessing in disguise, or an opportunity for Cole Perfetti to sort of find some confidence again in his game, playing with a guy like Nino Niederreiter, who, we know what Niederreiter is. He's a guy who's going to go to the dirty areas. He's a guy who's going to try, every shift of Niederreiter's looks very similar to the previous one.
Yeah.
So he's Mr. Consistent. So I wonder if that, a little more time with Kupari and Niederreiter isn't a bad thing for Perfetti to try and get him some confidence, get him going in the Winnipeg Jets lineup.
I don't disagree, Drew. I think it's a good idea, and I think that one of the things we've talked about with Cole Perfetti is that he is not a driver himself.
Right.
He is a very good complementary player, but he is not a driver at this point in his career. So, can he, to your point, make a bigger impact with maybe less minutes because he's playing against, the third pairing, D pairing, and stuff like that, and third line, fourth line. I think there's something to be said for that. And I think there is something. Look, I mean, Nikolai Ehlers is a guy who, for his entire career, has made a lot out of a little, right? He didn't play big minutes. And the funniest part is, I actually don't even think Nikolai Ehlers' minutes are actually down this year. He's, of course, getting more special teams time because he's on the first power play unit.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, can Cole Perfetti, a guy who we've been waiting to kind of see him take that step and be able to do that, could this be a blessing in disguise for him? I'm using that word. It's going to be a lot of blessings today. But
it's a very religious show.
Very religious. So I do wonder if that, what you're trying to get at is will this benefit Cole Perfetti and therefore the Jets? Because, of course, you need him to get rolling. You need it to snowball a little bit. You need him, once he starts to feel good, then you can get him onto the line back with Ehlers and Nemestikov or whomever the Jets decide to bring in and then go from there. So, I think it could end up being, all of these things could be beneficial. You don't want to see a guy, Vlad Nemestikov goes down, blocks that shot against the Kings. Mm-hmm. We didn't know, of course, what it was going to look like.
For the record, it sounds like he's just day-to-day. So it's not a long-term injury that's going to keep him out for weeks on end or anything along those lines.
Well, I mean, again, we always have to question these things. But yes.
At least that's what we've been told.
Well, no, that's
so
what
far.
Scott O'Neill said yesterday. Yeah. He did say he is, in fact, day-to-day. But he did say he tried it and didn't look, I don't remember the exact quote.
So he might be day-to-day for, tonight's game, obviously, maybe Thursday, maybe Saturday, but not something that where, IR is expected to be brought up.
He basically said, just to be clear, not much. Tried this morning, didn't go so well, so he won't be a player tomorrow. And he said, he's going to keep trying and see how it feels every day. So we didn't ask him today because we knew he wasn't a player tomorrow, or tonight, I should say. So it wasn't super relevant to the conversation in the media availability in the Matt Frost Media Center. But like I said, whether it's another game, another 2 games, the truth for the Jets, and this is all about evaluation. This process, this time of the year, clearly winning is important. We talked about the fact that you've got the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche, who up until just a couple days ago were on like 6 and 7 game winning streaks respectively. Now they've both lost, of course, subsequently. But
well, let me just interrupt you for a second. So the Jets' chief rivals in the Central Division, we know, are the Wild, the Stars, and the Avalanche. Right. So the Jets in their last 10 games are 6-2-2. Pretty good record, I'd say. More wins than losses, banking some points. The team right behind them, the Minnesota Wild, 7-3.
3 points back of them.
3 points back of the Jets, played the same number of games. Right behind the Wild, 3 points behind the Wild, so 6 points behind the Jets, the Dallas Stars. The Stars in their last 10, 8-1-1. And then you go to the Colorado Avalanche, the team the Jets beat on Saturday. They are in the wild card spot, so they're now 8 behind the Jets. But things can get quick, get tight real quick. The Avs in their last 10 are 7-2-1. So the top 4 teams in the Central Division, I mean, basically just don't lose. Unless they're playing each other, it seems like they don't lose there very much.
Which, again, is good because it allows you not to take your foot off the gas.
Sure.
Because the one thing this Jets team can't afford to do as they continue to refine their game, they're not, one of the things that the guys were asked today, Josh Morrissey was asked, when you get to that level, I don't remember if the word was elite, Drew. I know that's a word, folks.
That's a Mandelism.
That's a Mandelism.
Yeah. Hey, if somebody uses the word elite and they don't pay me a royalty, then there's a real problem going on.
But the fact of the matter is that it was the idea of like, well, now that you're up here, you got to maintain that. You got to get to that level. And Connor Hellebuck talked about it yesterday as well. Just that idea that you're never going to be able to stay here.
That's first star of the week in the NHL, Connor Hellebuck.
That is true. So but you also have to know like this is what you need to do to get to that level, and then constantly be working on your game, refining it. You don't want to get too comfortable. You don't want to take things for granted. And so the Jets can't afford to because the Minnesota Wild, and look at how banged up that team is. Yeah. This isn't Wild lunch, but they are beyond banged up.
Sure.
So and they're just 3 points back. And then, as you just said, Dallas and Colorado are on your butt. So I did this for a family fun show. You notice I moderated myself?
Family friendly.
I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, well.
Keister would also be an option for
that
you
would have
there.
been another option.
Yeah.
But the fact is that you've got you cannot take your foot off the gas in this Central. It's going to be a race right down to the end.
Yeah.
And from every single team's perspective, it's good because it's just going to continue to force these guys to refine their games, to play the best games that they can. And like the Jets did against the Colorado Avalanche on Saturday, play their best games.
Well, that's just it. I mean, and that's the game that we haven't seen a performance like Saturday's performance in a little while. Now, as I said, I think on Saturday mornings, Illegal Curve Hockey Show, 9 a.m. every Saturday morning. That's available, of course, on our YouTube channel, and then the podcast edition is available right after the show ends. For all of you in City Place, as we're broadcasting live in the City Place food court, who might be wondering to themselves, hey, I like those guys. First, you might want to get that checked out immediately. Second of all, there's a QR code on the big poster right behind me here. Just scan the QR code. That'll take you to all of the Illegal Curve information, so you can find out how you get more of us on a regular basis. We do this every Saturday morning. We do this once a month here at the City Place food court over the lunch hour. And, of course, we do the Illegal Curve post-game show following each and every Winnipeg Jets game, so that'll be back later on tonight.
More importantly, I want everyone to remind me in 6 minutes to refill my parking.
Okay, that's everybody's job. Yeah.
That's everybody in here's job.
Everybody at City Place, you have to do that. 6 minutes from now, be sure to remind
and if
Dave.
you do, you'll get a pair of socks from our friends at Play Now.
There you go. There you go. Dave's doing some promo there. Remind Dave to pay for his parking 6 minutes from now, and we'll give you a pair of socks for your efforts. That's just how kind we are here on the Illegal Curve, a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Harvey Manouk, my cousin in Toronto, wants me to tip the hat. How can I tip my hat if it's backwards?
Well, and you also never take off a hat. You're a man who wears a hat backwards on a regular basis.
Yeah, I'll tip it backwards, I guess.
Yeah,
but
that's
there you
okay.
go, Harvey.
There you go. Leave it as is. The hat needs to be on your head. I think
nobody wants to see this salad.
No, exactly. I don't have any salad, so I got rid of mine. So then nobody wants to see yours as well. It should be a fun one though tonight against the Vancouver Canucks.
One anthem.
One anthem, always. Anytime it's a one anthem game, it's a good one. And it's going to be a week where 2 of the 3 are one anthem games, with the Calgary Flames coming to town on Saturday night. A player that I'm expecting big things from today is Josh Morrissey, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Throughout the course of an 82-game season, you have to sort of, I think, find ways to motivate yourself night in and night out.
Yeah.
And when you talk, when the conversations about the best defensemen in the NHL are being had,
yeah,
the first names that usually come to mind are Cale Makar in Colorado,
yeah,
Quinn Hughes in Vancouver, and then always sort of in that next tier, people say Josh Morrissey, or analysts say Josh Morrissey. So I think Josh Morrissey, who's we know how good he is, how he should be. He's going to get Norris Trophy votes again this year. How for the last number of years he's just been far and away, I would describe him as the one of the top 3 most important Jets players, arguably the second most important Jets player behind Connor Hellebuck. I think on a night like tonight, where you're going up against a guy like Quinn Hughes, obviously they're not going mano a mano, but they're both 2 of the best defensemen in the league, on the same ice surface. I think you use nights like tonight as a way to maybe provide a little bit more motivation, a little more juice. And Josh Morrissey, I think, is a guy who will, embrace that challenge, embrace that opportunity to sort of remind everybody or affirm to everybody, hey, my name should be in that top tier conversation. I shouldn't be in that second tier of great defensemen, of exceptional defensemen, but I should be, when you say Makar and you say Hughes, you should also say Morrissey in the same breath. So I think that's it's just something I'm keeping an eye on with regard to Josh's performance tonight.
And I think that's a fair observation by you, and it's something that was discussed with Josh Morrissey today after morning skate. And he was asked, I think the first two or 3 questions to him were about Quinn Hughes and just how elite he is. And it's interesting because, I don't know the age disparity between the two. I would imagine there's probably 3 or 4 years, but
yeah, Quinn's younger.
No, I mean, I know that, but I'm saying I don't know how much younger. I think I'm trying to think what draft was he selected in?
So Quinn Hughes will be 25.
Okay,
he'll be 26 in October.
Okay, I was going to say 26.
Yeah.
So there you go. But the fact of the matter is that Josh talked about how he looks to Quinn Hughes as someone he studies and how he watches how he plays the game, because I don't think it matters how old you are. You don't have to watch a guy who is 30. Like Josh Morrissey doesn't have to say, okay, I can only watch players who are older than me in order to get inspiration, of course.
Right.
So what he does is he studies these guys, and a lot of these guys will train together, especially the ones who are out in Western. I mean, Quinn Hughes is an American, but Cale Makar is from Calgary, obviously. So those guys know each other. They probably see each other in the summer, and that is how you get to that next level is by watching what they do.
Sure.
And I've talked to
you
guys
steal from the greats.
for sure, and I've talked to that. I mean, I've talked about that with players who will try and take like a Tyrell Bauer when he would do something with Ville Heinola, just for off the top of my head, just in case T. Konopoli is listening. But the fact of the matter is that you're always trying to learn and develop. And I talked to Ville about that as well, about borrowing, stealing, whatever you want to call it, from other guys to be able to adapt that into your game. There's no rule, there's no copyright rule to say you can't use, that's my move, the stop short move, you can't use it. So I think you're absolutely right, Drew. I think that, Josh Morrissey looks to the various players in this league that he can get inspiration, he can adapt parts of his game. They probably do the same with him. But he also looks at it, again, I don't want to speak for him, but based on what he was saying today, that there is that challenge. There's a huge amount of respect that they have for each other, but also a challenge so that folks will regard him. Because remember, he's always going to be, I'm not trying to be we're Winnipeg, feel bad for us. But the fact of the matter is that this market doesn't generally get the regard, I would say, that others do, with the exception, of course, of when you have a goalie like Connor Hellebuck, who forces the entire league to kind of say...
It's funny you mentioned Connor Hellebuck. So our friends at The Athletic, I think they do I don't know if it's a monthly ranking or it's every couple months.
There's so much value in that.
I know, but it's okay. Your sarcasm notwithstanding there. They did they have a panel of goalie experts that they consult with. I think it's a combination of ex-goaltenders and goalie coaches and maybe.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And Connor Hellebuck's name was not on the top of the list as the most elite goaltender in the NHL, which. I'll be quick and honest with you, Drew. Yeah.
I of course don't read that stuff because I don't think it has a lot of value.
Yeah.
But I will say that my kind of cursory, very shallow understanding was that he had received nothing but first place, with the exception of just one person who had kind of knocked him off.
One person put him into the second tier. Not the second place, but the second tier. And honest to goodness, if you're at this point in time putting Connor Hellebuck,
it's embarrassing.
Yeah, at anything other than the top tier, not necessarily the best, even though I think a lot of people that are listening to this and a lot of Jets fans would say he is the best goaltender in the league, and his results as of late, I would say, would back that up. But they put him in a second tier with some other guys that you would consider good goaltenders, maybe like a Jacob Markstrom who's now in New Jersey, or other goaltenders around the NHL, but not in the same breath as other world-class goaltenders.
And were there any other world-class this year? Is that what they're saying, or no?
Yeah, they're saying like Igor Shesterkin is better.
He's been real world-class.
Sergei Bobrovsky, was in that elite tier, and it was just one voter who said that Hellebuck isn't in the same top tier as the best in the NHL, which to me is just, you're overthinking things at that point in time, I would suggest.
Yeah. More importantly, my meter expired, and nobody thought to tell me that
you plug your meter. You can do it through the app.
Nobody's getting socks.
No socks. Dave's not giving away the socks. Nobody told him to charge his. Oh, a Rams fan just walked here through City Place. Come on, this is Vikings territory. What are you doing being a Rams fan around here? That's okay. We'll forgive you.
I'm actually not.
What's the jersey?
I'm a professor. I wear jerseys to class for fun, different jerseys.
Oh, okay, fine. We'll let it go this time. Choose more wisely. Not a Rams fan after last night, though.
No, that's why I wore it, because they won. Vikings won. I wanted the Vikings.
Okay, good. In any event, we're live here downtown City Place Food Court. Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk, a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We will take our one and only commercial break, and when we come back, more on the Jets and the Vancouver Canucks. Great showing, great crowd here downtown City Place. Stay tuned, much more to come here on the special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
This January at Boston Pizza, every day is Pasta Tuesday. That means BP's famous pastas start at just $11.99 every single day. Create your own or go gourmet for just a few bucks more. Come on in for Pasta Tuesday pricing any day. Only this January at Boston Pizza.
Shortly after 12:30 in the afternoon, welcome back to a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk, live on location here at City Place.
Just gave away some socks.
Yeah, so there you go. You gave away some socks. We got
now,
one
why
pair
did we
left.
give away socks? Because nobody told me about my parking. So why was I feeling so generous? I'll tell you why. Because the gentleman, of course, was wearing an Illegal Curve hoodie.
There you go.
So because if you wear Illegal Curve merch, come down and say hello to Illegal Curve. Timmy, you're not getting socks, Timmy. Socks are going to our friends from Australia who are here visiting. That's a cool story. We're going to have a chat with them after. But so we'll give away the pairs of socks. But if you wear Illegal Curve merch, with the exception of Timmy, you're getting some socks.
Yeah, producer Tim doesn't count. He's, it's like, employees of Illegal Curve Hockey are not eligible for the sock giveaway. Is basically what it boils down to. Sock giveaway, courtesy of our friends at Play Now. They're the title sponsor of most of our programming, of course. Anyways, tonight the Jets and the Canucks 7:00 puck drop, which means the post-game show, right around 9:45 p.m. The Vancouver Canucks have certainly been an interesting team this year. A team not without some controversy, to put it mildly. We've heard all these stories coming out of Vancouver about some dissension in the ranks, if you will, that some of their best players may not be getting along. It really hasn't been refuted. Normally you hear things like that and it gets refuted. More or less in Vancouver, they are embracing that, which is a very different tack than you're used to in this day and age in the NHL. But the Canucks currently not in a playoff spot. They're a point behind the Calgary Flames for the final playoff spot, final wildcard spot in the Western Conference. 3-3-4 the Canucks are in their last 10 games, but they are a very good away team. So they haven't had a great deal of success on home ice on the left coast of Canada. But on the road, you get them on the road, and good things seem to happen for this Canucks team. As you mentioned, Dave, that win that they had on Saturday night in Toronto was particularly impressive. You go into Toronto, you beat a good Maple Leafs team, you shut that Maple Leafs team down, and what's also important is they flew in from Carolina the day of the game because they couldn't fly out the night before due to travel troubles, due to weather problems. So, all this adversity in front of them, they had a really good performance, probably one of their strongest performances of the year that you would hope, or that they're probably going to hope, are going to galvanize them and maybe get them back to where people thought, which is, be a playoff team. But the Winnipeg Jets, of course, are looking to counteract that, and they're looking to say, no, that was a one-off. We're going to keep you where you are, which is currently out of a playoff spot.
I will say, though, and again, as I said in the pregame report, I don't pay attention to the Canucks other than when they're here to face the Winnipeg Jets. But I will say
Yeah.
that they do have a lot of loser points. I think they've got 10 games now.
10 losses in overtime, to
Yeah.
your point, which
Yeah.
is, I believe that leads the NHL
I think
in
it
its
probably does.
entirety.
And they're also a very unusual team, probably worth mentioning, Drew, that they're a Jekyll and Hyde team for home versus road.
Right, that's what I said.
Yeah, I'm just saying. So I think it bears repeating because it's unusual to have a team that goes, now hold on, I have it here, 7-8-6 in Vancouver, and outside of BC they are 12-5-4.
Mm-hmm.
So Jekyll and Hyde, and again, unusual in the sense that most people think playing at home where you have the matchup advantage is to your advantage, and instead, in this instance, they are the reverse. So we'll see what, again, we don't know what to expect from the Vancouver Canucks because we don't watch them. We know they have a ton of talent. And look, there's no point in getting involved in like speculation. I mean, where there is smoke, there is usually some sort of fire.
Well, especially because it's been reported by so many different people, and it hasn't been denied. I mean, I don't know if you saw on the weekend Brad Marchand's denial.
I did see that, yeah.
Right. So somebody, a Boston media person who really doesn't have any credibility in terms of
How do you know that?
Well, because you know that's not a guy who's been known as a Bruins insider who's going to have real insight. I mean, he's just,
Would you call yourself an insider?
I would not call myself an
So
insider.
why should I trust what you have to say?
Well, I mean, I'm giving you my opinion. I'm not saying for fact. He was giving fact about things going on in the Bruins dressing room.
Fair.
That Brad
Fair
Marchand
enough.
came
Good
out
counter.
and said, this guy is not, we don't know who this guy is. He's never been in our room. Nobody's talking to him. And again, you have to look at the source for some of the stories. That source did not really have a lot of credibility.
Sure.
Whereas you look at some of the sources and, with regard to the discussion and the discord in the Canucks dressing room.
Right.
And that's been pretty well documented by some pretty reputable sources, both in Vancouver and those who cover the NHL at large.
Yeah, and again, the problem for me is I don't pay attention to other markets. I really don't, to the degree that I pay attention here. So, I mean, I hear that, I'm not going to pretend like I haven't seen or heard things, Drew. Obviously, I have.
Right.
But I'm not going to comment because I don't know enough about it and I don't really care enough about it. Other than to say that, this is a caution. I mean, Winnipeg is a cautionary tale. You have a very, talented player that is younger and maybe is not as well regarded, and gets driven out of town. That sounds familiar.
So
It's
you're using a parallel, of course, of Blake Wheeler and Patrick Line.
right, again, and it's something we were talking about in our media. Well, we were just chatting about it when we were sitting in the
media colleagues, the Yentas were sitting around talking about things.
The hands were clucking, if you will, and so we were discussing this to a certain degree. And look, that came up as a cautionary tale for folks in Vancouver. Look what happened here in Winnipeg with Patrick Line and Blake Wheeler, or others, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, you just have to be. It's something they're going to have to deal with as an organization. And
Right.
so from our point of view, what we're doing is we're here to look at what they're able to do. And you have a Canucks team that knows that they need to get back. They've fallen out Calgary because they won. Who did Calgary beat? Yes, Chicago, I think. Calgary beat Chicago yesterday. That
Sounds right.
leapfrogged them
And
ahead.
Edmonton beat the
1-0.
Kings 1-0, right? Yeah.
So you've got, but what the Calgary did, the win did was leapfrog them, I think, ahead of Vancouver. And so you've got to, that's what they're in a desperation thing.
Sure.
So you've got a team that's desperate, that has lost 4 out of 5. Sure, they feel good about the Toronto, but is that a one-off?
Well, that's the question.
Right, and that's what they're going to be trying to guard against, and they'll get a bit of a bump, of course, with Ronick returning to the lineup, and so there's you've got a top pairing guy alongside Quinn Hughes, that adds an element, right? That bumps everyone down. That obviously makes your blue line stronger. It's going to be what's his name in that? Lankinen, right?
Yeah, Kevin Lankinen.
So Lankinen's in net as per the guys who came back to the Matt Frost Media Center. So it's not Hellebuck versus Demko, but it should be still a good goaltending battle. And like I said, this is it's going to me, the biggest question mark, the most interesting thing from tonight's game, Drew, is can the Jets do what they did against the Colorado Avalanche? Can they continue to play that style of game tonight? Was it again, similar to what I just said about the Canucks, was it a one-off? Or is that something that you're going to develop as a pattern? And I think that you're going to see guys like Rasmus Kupari. He has to embrace the fact that, look, you've just been elevated to third-line center.
Sure.
That's a huge opportunity for you. And what do I always say? It's that's the best O word in hockey is opportunity. That's all guys want is an opportunity. Well, Rasmus Kupari is been good on the fourth line, but here's an opportunity to take an even more significant role in this Jets team. So you're going to see if he can embrace that and do something with it, along with Alex Iafallo, who now is finding himself to be a second-line winger when just before, not too long ago, he was on the fourth line.
It's true, exactly. So, as he gets elevated in the lineup, the minutes become more important, and the opportunity, to your point about the O word there, the opportunity begins to shine a little bit brighter. And, for a guy like Alex Iafallo, of course, we know that he's not really worried about it at this point in time, but he's certainly playing for a contract next season and beyond. So, any opportunity, any chance to display that you have the flexibility and the ability to move up and down a lineup, anytime you can wear more hats for your head coach, that's a good thing for you. The coach can say, okay, I'm gonna, and we know that with Iafallo, he is able to be deployed in that lower in the lineup role, that he's able to be deployed in a higher in the lineup role, not probably on a permanent basis. That's not where he's not suited to be a top six scoring forward at this stage, but he's certainly a reliable cog in every team. Again, the Jets have so many guys, players who are the kind of player that every team covets because they're reliable. Iafallo, Niederreiter, Nemesnikov, just guys who are stabilizing forces for a head coach, and that's what they get. So when they get an opportunity to move up or move down in the lineup and demonstrate that again for everybody to see, it's important for when that happens.
And Iafallo had, just to be clear, 17 goals 17 and 20 with the Kings. Not that long ago. Again, I'm not suggesting that is like lights out, but it's not insignificant to be able to put up close to 20 goals and 20 assists.
Right. And you look at the opportunity for the Jets in today's game. You look at it, from the Vancouver perspective, all of the Vancouver numbers. You still expect more from the Canucks. Mm-hmm. But all their numbers point to a team that really is average. And when you're battling for, the second wild card spot, and you play in the Pacific Division, which really isn't, beyond Vegas, and the Oilers, I guess the Kings now, it's not like it's a world beater of a division. Nobody would ever say that the best division in hockey belongs to the Pacific Division. But
not after what we said about the Central earlier today.
Right, exactly. Not where the Central certainly looks like a much bigger beast. And the West in general is better than the East so far this year. It seems so far, when you look at the playoff race, albeit still early, but you look at the playoff race and the point total that's likely to get you into the playoffs in the East, it's pretty low. But from the Vancouver perspective, nothing about their performance, nothing about their numbers, nothing about their stats, whether they be analytics or traditional stats, screams out to you that it's an elite hockey team. They don't score that much. They don't. They give up more than they should. Bottom of the league in both of those categories. Bottom of the league, if I'm not mistaken. Bottom half of the league is what I meant to say. In the specialty teams, bottom half of the league in terms of possession numbers. All these things that say that the Winnipeg Jets, with a similar performance to what you saw on Saturday, should put themselves in an advantageous position.
Well, I feel like that's what we've been talking about this whole show, is that this is what you're expecting. You want to see that they are able to be consistent. That is what anybody wants in life, is consistency. And I think that is what they're going to want to see from the Winnipeg Jets, that you were able to replicate. That it wasn't something that it was like, oh, well, we caught fire for one game and it was neat, but, we can't duplicate it. Can you continue to do it? Can you continue to replicate it? Can these guys form this?
Sorry, it's interesting, on Friday night after the Jets and the Kings
You were really
game,
inspired by my thought there, Drew.
I was inspired by your thought there. But, on Friday night after the Jets and the Kings game, Scott Arneal talked about that had a playoff-esque vibe to it. And both you and I sort of on the post-game show that night, and Ezzy said, it didn't seem playoff-esque. It seemed more boring than anything else. Right. And then, then they follow that up on Saturday with another shutdown performance.
Yep.
So maybe there was something to be said for, the Jets are, again, it's now we're in the back half of the year. We've played more than 41 games. There's still a lot of hockey left.
Right.
But maybe the Jets are now sort of, again, trying to fine-tune that defensive playoff style of hockey where they can stifle their opposition like they did against Colorado. Because if they play like that, and now Colorado didn't play their best game by any stretch of the imagination, but you wonder if, the Jets this whole season for the Jets, as fun as this regular season has been so far.
Yeah.
And it has been, and so don't overlook that as I'm reminding people. Enjoy this while it's been happening. But we all know that everything's leading up to the start of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So you wonder if maybe they're again building blocks game at a time in the back half of the year here as they're trying to fine tune their game for optimal performance come playoff time.
Well, so that idea is what Connor Hellebuck talked about. And remember, when I say all these things, you don't have to take my word for it. Go to the Illegal Curve YouTube page after, of course, the show is over.
Sure.
And check out all of the media availabilities.
Hear it yourself.
Which is not, and you don't find it on TSN, you don't find it on Sportsnet, you don't find it anywhere else. The Jets find it. They do it too. Usually after me, just a little self-tap on the little IC thing. We're usually the most quick to get that stuff up. But the point I'm making is that the last point that Connor Hellebuck was asked about was about their record in third periods and how when they have a lead, they haven't lost a game. And what was the thought behind that? Well, his response was that they play for each other. It's a more mature game. They are more dedicated to each other, more responsible. They're taking less chances. They're willing to take less risk because, you know what? I don't want, sure, there's an opportunity there, but maybe it's a 50-50 one. And those odds aren't good enough for me to take a risk on a game we're winning 3-2 or 4-2. So what they're doing is his teammates, he's saying, they're holding back from that. They're making less, he didn't call them selfish decisions, but you look at it that way.
Sure, professional decisions, winning decisions, if you will.
Yeah, and
not individual team decisions, not individualistic decisions.
And again, for the most part, while there are a number of guys who are UFAs, and we'll, of course, talk about that on our Saturday show for the remainder of the year, and especially up to the trade deadline. But one of the things that he talked about was that, the guys aren't going for their points. That guys are trying to do what they need to do to put themselves in a position to win hockey games. And right now, that's what we're seeing. And so you want to see you want to see it stretch, and there's going to be peaks and valleys and lulls, of course, but that is the key, is that right now they seem to be playing that mature game, less selfish, if you will. And, there's a benefit to having some of these guys signed for, long term where they don't have to worry about it. And when I say these guys, I mean they're core pieces.
Right.
So you've got Morrissey for, 3 more years locked up. Of course, Hellebuck and Scheifele signed the big deals. Kyle Connor will be the next, Ehlers potentially, and Kyle Connor most likely to get that next one. But my point is that most, those guys don't have to think about it for the next year or two. And because of that, they're just focusing on what it takes to win. Because one of the key points in today's conversation with Josh Morrissey, how he ended it, and I'm sure I'll cut it and I'll post it on the various socials for us here on Illegal Curve. But he realized, look, in his second year in the NHL, Josh Morrissey went to the Western Conference Finals.
Sure.
It's been 7 years since that time. So while you're young and you think it's easy to do and you can always get there and you'll always have chances to compete, and year after year you have a good team, it's not easy. And some good teams, like we've seen juggernaut teams, I think of the Red Wings in the 90s, I think of the Tampa Bay Lightning a few years ago, they'll get knocked out in the first round. The Jets, of course, have had that happen to them as well. The fact of the matter is that it's not easy to win. So when you have a chance, when you have an opportunity, when you have a group that is right now on pace with that 17-18 group, you recognize, hey, it's been 7 years since we had a team that was as good as that. We need to maximize and we need to take advantage and push this team forward with that sort of winning mentality, because who knows if we're going to get that opportunity, maybe not again in his career.
Sure, you're right. You think just because you get there once early on, you think it's going to happen every year beyond that. And it doesn't. We just know it doesn't. Circumstances rear their ugly head.
IC stays on top. We're always on top.
We're consistent.
We're good at top.
We're consistent, but that's easy. No one's we're not in demand by anybody else, so that's okay. We can spend the time with each other because no one else wants to spend that quality time with us. If we were in demand, things might change at that point in time. But one thing I wanted to mention or discuss a little bit before we get closer to the top of the hour and the conclusion of this special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, live on location at City Place. We're in the food cart. Food court. I always say food cart for some reason.
I'm like, what is a food cart?
It's a food court.
I would be okay. I wouldn't be adverse if someone took a food from the various locations
brought it
here
to you in a
on a
cart.
cart and then pushed it to us, and I could just munch it. I'd be into that. But I've never heard of a food cart.
Yeah, it's because even though I'm a host of the show and I do this multiple times a week, apparently the English language is still new to to me in that
all good.
situation. In any event, what I was saying, we're live here at City Place in the food court, as we are every month, talking about the Winnipeg Jets. Our next live on location performance, Friday, February the 7th. So be sure to be back here to join us on that day. Amazing, the return of Dylan Sandberg, what it's done to the Jets penalty kill.
Wow.
A penalty kill that for a last number of weeks before, while he was out of the lineup, was really rearing its ugly head and it's an Achilles heel for the Winnipeg Jets. A blink of an eye, a few games with some solid kills, especially when they were taking...
Even before he came back. They
Right.
do credit because that game they took... Which was the game they took 7 against? Who was that against?
It was that Nashville game.
Yeah, the Nashville game.
Last Tuesday,
They
yes.
did kill all but one.
That's right.
And he wasn't back yet.
Right. So, you saw the signs of it, but it certainly only continued to increase since he's returned and back to being a regular in the Winnipeg Jets back end. But all of a sudden, that penalty kill for the Jets, which was really struggling, back up to 16th in the NHL overall.
Yeah, I know.
So
I saw
the
that.
improvement on the PK has been rapid. We know where the power play's been. It's still atop the NHL, and how important it's been for the Winnipeg Jets as getting almost a goal a game, it seems like, when it comes to the power play. But as of late, the Jets actually haven't been drawing that many penalties. So
Just
I'm
3
sure
in the last 2 games.
Well, 3 in the last 2 games, which is not a lot, especially when you consider this is a whistle-happy NHL oftentimes, where you look at a guy the wrong way and the refs are going to call you for something.
Scott Arneal said, the repping's been fantastic. It's been great. It's been fantastic. So he did make someone asked about the idea of not many penalties that his team being drawn. Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press asked him, he goes, what can you do? And Mike obviously wasn't asking him. He goes, well, we were not going to start diving. But he just said to that idea, Drew, because it is fresh, he essentially said, they just have to keep doing what they're doing, move with speed, and just try and draw penalties.
Sure. I mean, and that's obvious.
But also that teams know that the Jets' power play is so lethal that you just can't afford to take penalties against them. And if you do, the Canucks' power penalty kill is 12th overall. So still a pretty good PK. They got the 14th ranked power play.
Right.
So they're kind of in the middle of the pack in that regard. But yeah, I mean, that's that idea, is that teams are coming in with a game plan. The game plan is don't take penalties against the Winnipeg Jets.
Like the Oilers were last year. Remember, anytime you played the Oilers last year, it seemed like we don't need to name the names of who goes out there on the Edmonton power play. We know how lethal they are. Right. But the Jets power play is sort of in the same breath right now. Just the competence and the effectiveness of that power play is fantastic. We'll see a bit of as we mentioned earlier, you're going to see a bit of a shake-up on the second power play unit with Ville Heinola. I mean, the second power play unit does not get a ton of time, as we well know. When the first power play unit scores so quickly, the power plays expire before the second unit can get out there. But Ville Heinola going to get some power play time in the course of tonight's game, at least based on the morning skate today so far.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier in the show, it's going to be good for Ville. I think him getting more touches, getting more comfortable. I mean, he played a lot of power play with the Manitoba Moose. Right. So it's not something he's unfamiliar with, and that's his bag. I mean, he is an offensive defenseman. He knows how to, make good passes. So I think, that will give a guy who probably wants some more confidence. Because
what do you think about him being on the right side again with Logan Stanley?
I don't like it personally. Yeah. I think it handcuffs him. I think he is a natural left side guy. I mean, he played 66 of 67 games last year on the left with the Manitoba Moose on the left side. He's not a right side guy. But as Nate Schmidt told me, and as I've famously told on this show many times before, the fact of the matter is, in the NHL, if you want to play in the NHL and the team says we need you on the right side, then you learn to play on the right side and you do it to the best of your abilities. And if that's where they see you, that's where they see you. You're not going to say, well, you know what? I'm really more of a lefty, so get Dylan Coughlin in the lineup. I'm good. So you're obviously not going to say that.
I'm a little surprised, though. I mean, I guess, again, we don't need to relitigate the third pairing defense conversation, because it really has been. Our buddy Mike McIntyre wrote it. I don't know if it was online or if it was in their sort of the game day. They do the newsletter, him and Ken do, and he was sort of saying, I'm a little sick of the discourse. It's been debated, it's been discussed. The Jets, the organization's making the decision that they're making, where they want to get Logan Stanley into the lineup, as much as they can, at least right now, with other guys who are still banged up.
And the fact of the matter is, it's not as if the questions haven't been asked. I mean, that's the problem. People are like, you're not asking the tough questions. Well, remember, I've said this before. We don't run the team. We don't own the team. We don't make the decisions. We're not paid by the team. We make observations about the team. So when it comes to decisions that the team makes, we ask them about it. We can inquire. We cannot get into an argument with the coach and say, well, your decision is, like, again, there's ways of presenting it that are not argumentative, that can present the fact that, look, Ville Heinold's numbers have shown you this, Logan Stanley's numbers have shown you this, which I think have been done, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm in almost every media availability. I've heard the questions asked. So, I mean, the truth is, at the end of the day, Scott Arniel is the head coach of this team. Scott Arniel is the one whose job is on the line and needs to have this team be a winning team. And if they're not going to be a winning team, it's going to be his head on the chopping block,
yeah.
right? So I mean, at the end of the day, he's doing what he thinks is best. You don't have to agree with him. We don't always agree with him. I mean, personally, I think Logan Stanley on the PK makes absolutely no sense.
Right.
I don't think he can do the PK. I don't think he's fast enough. And so, again, we question things all the time. But again, there's a limit to how much you can do. And again, the organization they can say all they want, but at the end of the day, they get to make the decisions, and we can criticize them, which is our right, and which is what we do when we watch things that we don't agree with.
Yeah, and that, and if that is warranted on tonight's Illegal Curve post-game show after the Jets and the Canucks, well, that's something we'll certainly do. We hope you all join us for that right around 9:45 p.m. later tonight. The Jets and the Canucks will have done battle, and then we will discuss it all on the Illegal Curve post-game show.
As he wants to discuss the fact that you've been drinking the same coffee for 55 minutes.
I try to ignore him as much as I possibly can.
He's integral to this team.
He's something, all right. But I mean, is there something? I mean, should I not be drinking this coffee? I'm confused by the question.
As his question is the coffee not cool?
Well, it's warm still, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with the coffee. It's still warm. I mean, I got it from here at the food court at City Place. So I mean, it's a perfectly good cup of coffee as far as I'm concerned. I don't know why he's so surprised by it. I mean, I don't have a barista on call like apparently he does at all hours of every day to make him a fresh cup of coffee every 30 minutes. Well, sometimes I have to go 55 minutes drinking the same cup of coffee. But I mean, I didn't realize it's really a conversation starter.
It's a hot button issue. I've never drank a cup of coffee in my life. So
have you had a sip of coffee?
I did when I was 8 years old.
Really?
And and I was like, this is disgusting. I'm never trying this ever again. Now, I will admit.
Even when you were at university and you needed to do an all-nighter and you needed a caffeine jolt or something?
I've never needed it. But I will say.
You are pretty hyper on your own. I'll admit that.
But I will say, now, in defense of coffee, when I tried it, and of course having no idea what I was doing, I think I put about 50 of those little sugar cubes into the coffee. Well, it was probably disgusting.
I mean, you were 8 years old, so I think there's some, a discussion to be had with your parents about the.
No, I was in an event. I was just running around, and I tried. Maybe I don't remember the exact age.
So you were an unsupervised 8-year-old drinking coffee.
Yeah, that's right. And it was I was running around the North End like like used to doing, and I was up to no good.
There you go.
Making trouble in the neighborhood.
I'm not sure that this is buttressing the argument in favor of your parents. I got to be honest with you.
I think Gary and Cheryl did a good job.
Well, it's whatever they. I'll tell you what. Compared to your brother, yeah, for sure they did a good job in that case. We'll give them credit for that.
Shout out Dan Manuk Law.
There you go.
625 Nairn.
Cheap plug right there.
There you go.
You only got to plug things that are live on location here at City Place. That's where we are for this edition.
Well, we might need a lawyer after this, Drew. So I'm just saying that if you need one, go see my brother.
That's true. I think we always need I think we have him on retainer at all times, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's always important. Just another great afternoon here downtown at City Place, live on location edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. So much fun doing these shows. We do them every month, and we're always got them circled on the calendar. So as you can see, for all those that are within earshot or all those that are walking through the mall that might be listening to the podcast or listening live on our YouTube and social media channels, be sure to check out the giant poster behind us. That gives us the upcoming dates. We have 2 more dates, February the 7th and March the 14th. And then, of course, the word playoffs can probably begin to be bandied about quietly. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but we hope to be back on site, of course, come playoff time.
You're really worried about those Utah, whatever they
hockey clubs.
Yetis.
We'll see them on Monday. The Jets head to Utah to face.
Don't they play them twice in
Monday and Friday?
Yeah,
so Monday in
Friday.
Utah, and then Wednesday in Colorado for the rematch between the Jets and the Avs. Which will be really the third time the Jets and Avs have played each other in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, I know.
Going back to New Year's Eve. So these two teams are certainly familiar with each other. And then Utah back in Winnipeg next Friday. But before that, we still have tonight's game against the Vancouver Canucks. That'll be an exciting one. The Jets and the Canucks, 7 o'clock puck drop. Of course, City Place will be your destination before the game, after the game. We encourage everybody to check it out. Check us out online as well, and then be sure to tune in later on tonight for the Illegal Curve post-game show following the Jets and the Vancouver Canucks. Want to say a big thank you to everybody here at City Place, all those who've come up and said hello and are going to come up and say hello as we wrap up the program here. Producer Tim makes us sound as good as he can, because without him, Lord knows that this show is not as smooth of an operation as it usually is. Dave Manouk is, of course, on my right, and I'm your host, Drew Mindell. Thanks to everybody for joining us here live at City Place. We'll see you later on tonight following the Jets and the Canucks for the Illegal Curve post-game show. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. For Dave Manouk, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. This has been a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Woo!
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow at Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.